One thought every game plus the matchups to watch. Eagles and Packers right now with KC Joyner, the footballscientist.com, as he joins us live on the Boardwalk on the hotline. KC, my friend, how are you?
Doing great. Yourself?
All is well. We got, we are getting deep into the season. Week 13, we know a lot more about these teams, and let's obviously dive into this Eagles and Green Bay game. This Packer team, it's funny because the Eagles went to Green Bay last year, beat that team up there on a Thursday night. Would you say the Green Bay is comparable to last year, or is this a much better Packer team?
I'd say they're comparable to last year because they're not. If you look at their schedule, look at what they've done this year. This is not a fantastic team. This is. You look at what they beat. Let's see here. They lost to Tampa. They lost to Minnesota. Minnesota ran all over them. They barely beat Jacksonville. They gave up, they scored 3 points in the second half in overtime against the Colts. They beat Chicago last week, but it's Chicago. Chicago's one of the worst teams in the league right now. So right now they're not playing, and they beat San Francisco, but San Francisco had half their team on the injured roster. So, I'm not sure how good this team is, but I don't think they're an 8-3 caliber club right now.
All right, let's take a look at their passing game against this Eagles secondary, which I thought the Eagles defense played pretty well last week. They held them into that game for as long as they could. Obviously, the offense really struggled against Seattle, but when you put them up against Aaron Rodgers and this passing game, how do they look?
I don't like any of the matchups against Devontae Adams. Darius Slay, looking at Darius Slay's numbers, his coverage numbers in Pro Football Reference, it's incredible that he's given up 8.9 yards per target. It's tied for highest among Eagles cornerbacks. He's got easily the highest air yards against him. He's allowing a 72.5% completion rate. I think if you send him up against Adams, I think Adams is going to have a fantastic day because Slay's just not being a shutdown corner. But having said that, the rest of their receivers, Marquez Valdez-Scantling doesn't even get a target last week. Alan Lazard, he's coming back from that core muscle problem, so he doesn't look quite the same. So if I'm the Eagles, just put two on Devontae every play and say, fine, we'll go one-on-one. I literally mean put two, like cap the coverage or put two guys on and do like the Patriots did against Tony Gonzalez years ago, literally put two guys at the line of scrimmage against them. Do whatever you can to take Devontae Adams out of the lineup. Because if you take him out, they don't have much else in their passing game.
But they do run the ball pretty well, and this is something that they haven't been able to do in the past.
They do run the ball very well. The thing about the Eagles this year is if you look at their overall rushing defense, it's not that good. They're allowing 130 more yards rushing in, I think it's 4 of the past 6 games. It's not a very good number. But I start looking at what they do against running backs. They've only allowed running backs to gain more than 100 yards on 3 occasions this year. Now, the problem is 2 of the last 4 teams have done it, but still, they're going up against some solid rushing teams, and they're able to hold them in check. They've never given up. In fact, other than the Rams doing 141 in week 2, they've never given up more than 125. Keep the Packers to around 100 yards in the ground game. Maybe you don't slow them down, but maybe you don't let them have a gargantuan game. I think they could get this offense down in that area too.
We know that the Eagles, on defense anyway, their pass rush is their bread and butter. Now, it doesn't always work, but this is an area where you would think that they can make something happen against Green Bay.
You would think that they could. I think that Green Bay, I think their offense can be disrupted. I think they're playing very well and they're doing a lot of things, but I think that it is an area where you can disrupt the offense. And again, if you take Adams out of the game, which is much easier said than done, but if you can remove him as a target, they just don't have anybody. And Tunyon's a solid tight end, but he's not somebody you're really that concerned about. And like I said, Lazard is slowed down, and Valdez-Scantling didn't even get a single target last week. So I think if you can take away that first read and make Rodgers wait, I don't think their pass blocking is as good as their run blocking.
All right, let's look at the Eagles' offense, which obviously has struggled mightily. They went to Green Bay last year and were able to find some things. Now, it's obviously a different group of guys, but let's start with the run game. They ran the ball 33 times last year up at Green Bay. If they want to win this game, and KC Joyner had a chance to sit in the offensive game plan room, are you saying, hey, Doug, run the ball? You did it last year and it worked.
Power of football. We talked earlier just a couple minutes ago about how Minnesota ran the ball exceptionally well, 173 yards. Tampa Bay gained 158 yards on the ground. The Saints, 122. The Vikings in the first matchup, 134. The Colts 2 weeks ago, 140. The Bears last week, 121. Green Bay, their defense does not handle the power run game very well. They're an athletic defense. They're built to say, fine, our offense is going to get a lead, and you're going to have to throw, and then we can sit back and try and cover against you. That's the way they're built. They're not built to take a punch to the mouth. So if I'm the Eagles, I'm going, I got power. Now I got Ertz back, so fine. I can put Rodgers and Goddard into block. If I got to make Goddard block even more, because now I don't need him to flex him out and things, we can start doing more things in the power ground game. If I'm them, that's what I'm doing. Just zone left, zone right, and punch these guys in the mouth.
Well, we'll see if they follow you. If they don't and they want to throw the ball, I think the one area you can trust in Green Bay is their secondary.
Yeah, I hope they don't try and throw the football. If they did try and throw the ball, Green Bay they don't have shutdown corners, and King has not played well for them of late either. He's been very suspect in coverage, so I would probably go against him in coverage. He'd be somebody to target. I don't like going after Jair Alexander. He's very strong. I've got him rated as a red-rated cornerback. Guy named Chandon Sullivan. I'm not sure how good he is. He hasn't been really targeted that much. They might go up against him with Rager and things. And Savage. Darnell Savage is their strong safety. He'd be somebody that I would expect that they would go to target with Ertz. I hope Ertz is back to full strength and better than he was earlier this year, because if you get the regular Zach Ertz, what we had expected in past years, he didn't get anything close to that. That's a matchup they could exploit.
Yeah, it's one thing we talked about earlier, which was Richard Rodgers, Goddard, Ertz. I mean, you can really go big and, maybe nickel and dime yourself down the field, but it's something that the Eagles did successfully last year late in the season.
They absolutely could, because now you can leave Goddard in the block. You can have Rodgers go out as a flex target if you need to. You can have Ertz go out as a flex target. So now you're essentially adding with Ertz. Frankly, you're adding another quality receiver, which is what they really need, because now you can have Goddard block. Goddard's blocking hasn't been quite as good this year as it was in past years, but I still trust him more than I trust the other Eagles tight ends. And if you can tell him just to concentrate on that, I think he'd be better at it. So I think he could have a double impact.
Are you trusting Carson Wentz anymore after watching him last week against Seattle? I mean, to tie this all together, do you trust him to win a football game at this stage of the season with how he's played?
No, I don't. I mean, the thing is the Green Bay in the first 7 games of the season, they had only generated 4 takeaways on defense. But in the last 4 weeks, they've got 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 5. They have 8 turnovers over the past 4 weeks, and they've had 2 or more turnovers in 3 of those weeks. So they're just not. This is not defense I want to be testing right now. If I'm Ertz, I want to power run, and I want to use vertical passing or some kind of passing as a counterpunch. I don't want to lean heavily on the passing game at all in this contest.
Eagles are going to go with the 12th different offensive line look. Jack Driscoll will start at a right tackle. We'll see how that all goes. We'll get Casey's pick and why coming up. But first, let's get one thought on every game in Week 13. There is some interesting games this week when it comes to the playoff. This one's New Orleans and Atlanta. We saw Atlanta really play well last week, maybe the best game they've played in a couple of years. But you never know what to expect with this New Orleans Taysom Hill offense.
You don't, but the thing is the Saints get more production of every facet of their roster than any other team. They find ways to get production literally on the 53rd man on the roster. That's why they've been able to absorb the injuries to Breeze and Thomas, and Kamara's production's fallen off. And plus, they racked up 12 takeaways in the past 4 contests. Atlanta's playing better. I'm still taking Saints.
All right, you go to Chicago. This is the team that offensively might be the one team that's worse than Philadelphia. And Detroit, of course, fired everybody out there. So this is 2 teams with not a lot to play for. But, that Chicago defense is pretty good still.
They have been good. They haven't been playing quite as well of late. And what I think is going to happen, though, is Detroit, Bevel's going to try and keep that job. Obviously, I don't think he's going to get it, but he's going to make a good shot at it. And if he does, he says he wants to run pace, wants to throw the ball a lot, and the Lions has some injuries in the secondary. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm actually picking Detroit because in the high-scoring game, I think the Lions just have more weapons even without Galladay.
All right, Tennessee, Cleveland, 2 good teams here. I guess we're going to find out, how good Cleveland is. Tennessee, I think we feel is good, and if they win this game, that would really prove, hey, they're for real, and Cleveland's not.
Yeah, it's probably the marquee game of the week. Cleveland, their early season win streak was based on a strong offense, but in the last 3 wins that they have, their 3-game win streak, only allowing 16.3 points per game. The Browns have 575 yards on the ground in that 3-game win streak, though, too, so that's the kind of team they are. The thing is, the Titans have that good of a ground game, and the Browns have a really bad rush defense. I think that bad rush defense is the key for Tennessee, so I'll take Titans.
All right, going up to Miami is Cincinnati, and Miami trying to be in the playoffs here. They got to win late games like this. You cannot stub your toe against this Cincinnati outfit.
You can't, and Miami's got some bad running back issues. Now it looks like they might even have to go. I mean, Gaskins maybe a go, and but Breida looks like he's not going to play. So I mean, they're going to be going to a 4-string running back there, and that's not a good place to be. But they have posted 100 more ground yards in 2 of the past 3 games, and the Bengals have allowed 140 more rushing yards in 3 of the past 4. I think that the Dolphins will still be able to run the ball, even if they've got bad running back. They can get average production. I just don't see Cincinnati's offense being able to be that productive, so I'll take Miami.
Jacksonville and Minnesota, 2 very disappointing teams. Minnesota obviously had playoff expectations. Jacksonville obviously has been a mess. They're going to Mike Glennon for the 2nd week in a row here.
They are. The thing is that if you take that Steelers game out in Week 11, the Jaguars' last 3 losses have been by a total of 8 points. And the thing is that they are always good at the turnover battle. They've only lost the turnover battle by more than one time since Week 3. So they don't tend to get turnovers. And Minnesota's committed 2 or more giveaways in 7 of the past 10 games. So I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think, but Minnesota's just got too much talent. I'll take them.
All right, going to the Jets, 0-11. This has been one of the most disastrous seasons. Vegas, who had an awful week last week, now they got to travel on the road. This feels like one of those spots where you don't want to be the team that loses the game against the Jets.
Yeah, people still remember the 1976 New Orleans Saints, or the 77 New Orleans Saints, because they ended the 26-game losing streak of the Bucs, an 0-26 start to their franchise. Look, the Raiders have allowed 30 or more points on 7 occasions this year, and the Jets have scored 28 points in 2 of the past 3, but they've also scored 10 or fewer points on 5 of the past 7. I think there's a chance that the Jets can keep this close, but I'm still taking the Raiders.
All right, go to Indianapolis and Houston. Colts, this is a big game for them. They got to win this game, keep pace here. They had a tough loss last week, and Houston obviously is playing out the string.
Houston, if they had Will Fuller, this would be an entirely different game because they've won 3 of the last 4. They put up 370 more offensive yards in those games, and they have 27 points in each of those victories. So, and they had 3 takeaways against Detroit, which is a big plus for them because their defense hasn't been doing anything of the sort. But Fuller, it's just a domino effect on their offense. They don't have anybody to take his place from a big play perspective, so I'll take the Colts.
All right, let's go to Arizona and the Rams. Both of these teams in the wild card mix, in the division mix. Arizona, slipping a little bit here. L.A. coming off of a tough loss last week. Can Arizona bounce back at home?
The Rams are the most frustrating team in the league right now. They lost 2 games to the indirect Niners. Miami beat them last week. Miami beat them despite being piloted by a rookie quarterback who gave them only 145 total yards. And the Rams only have a 3-4 mark this year if you take the NFC East games out of the mix. They're just not that good. But Arizona's in a similar boat. They've got a bunch of victories against weak teams. And what I worry about is, though, Belichick showed the league how to stop Murray last week or how to slow him down. I think the Rams could already slow him down just at a talent perspective. If you add that play-calling edge, I'll take L.A.
Seattle getting to feast on the NFC East this week. Last week, Philly. This week, the Giants. Giants got to travel all the way across the country, and they're going to do it with a backup quarterback.
They're going to do it with a backup quarterback in Seattle. They're taking a different approach. Early in the year, they started getting a lot of shootouts, and we were talking earlier this year about how Seattle can't keep doing that. That's just too low percentage of a move. And since they had a couple of losses and they had some turnovers in those losses, Pete Carroll's going back to the old tried and true power football, counterpunch vertical game. The Giants are not going to be able to keep up with that. Even if they had Jones, they won't be able to keep up with it. But without him, they're definitely going to lose.
All right, KC Joyner, one thought on every game in Week 13. Let's go to New England and the Chargers. Obviously, the Chargers have been a major disappointment. Their quarterback's been pretty good. And New England is one of those teams that, I don't know, every week they seem to change.
They do. Think about, though, last week they get 69 net passing yards, 179 total offensive yards. They gave the ball away twice, and they only held the ball for 26 minutes, and they were facing Kyler Murray, and yet they held him to a season-low 17 points, 160 net passing yards because they found a way to found a game plan to slow him down. I have a feeling they might be able to do the same against Justin Herbert, whose production has been slacking off a little bit of late, and I think they'll be able to slow him down, and they'll be able to run the ball against the Chargers' rush defense that's not as good as their pass defense. I'll take New England.
All right, Sunday night, Denver and Kansas City. Obviously, Kansas City has been rolling. Denver seems like they've had some random wins this year against some teams, and you're like, how the heck did they pull that off? But this seems to be an uphill battle.
And last week was the debacle with the practice string wide receiver at quarterback. But the problem is that even if you take that game out, the last 2 games before that, they'd only scored 32 points, and they gave the ball away on 7 occasions. So their offense has just been bad regardless. And mind you, Denver's given up 200 or more rushing yards in 3 of the past 5 games. Andy Reid has been able to go either run heavy or pass heavy. He'll have his pick in these, and they've won 10 straight matchups against Denver. They're going to make it 11 this week.
All right, we have 2 Monday night games and a Tuesday game this week. Casey will be back on Monday to look at those and back at the Eagles and the Packers. But before we let you roll, let's get your pick. Eagles, Packers, who wins and why?
I have to say, the Green Bay has tallied 31 or more points in 4 of the past 6. They posted 360 more net offensive yards in all but 1 contest this year. The Philly rush defense has allowed 130 or more rushing yards in 6 of the past 7. It's at Lambeau Field, and they've got the O-line issues. I can see a couple paths to victory that we talked about earlier, but I just see a lot more paths to victory for Green Bay. So I got to take the Pack.
All right, Packers is your pick. We'll be back on Monday to recap that and, of course, preview the 2 Monday Nighters and the Tuesday as KC Joyner gives us one thought on every game in Week 13 on the Monday show. KC, enjoy the football, man.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, he is back on Monday, and, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.